About how to deploy CloudPoint on a virtual machine on the Azure cloud. To get started with, let's launch a new virtual machine. So remember, CloudPoint would we recommend that you have 2 cores and at least 7 GB memory on the machine that you are using for CloudPoint, and we also recommend that you have an additional data disk. So let's see this. I prefer Ubuntu, so I'm going to just say an Ubuntu machine. Go through naming the machine. For my convenience, I will just say admin 9 and then say Ubuntu. I'll use a password. Your enterprise policy might dictate a different kind of policy around that, so be careful. I'm selecting one of the existing user groups and I'm launching in the West US. Again, these are something that you would do for yourself. So here we go. We need to choose the disk size, so I'm going to choose 2 cores and 7 gigs and say select. Everything else looks good. I don't change any of the defaults. So we are using a manage disk option, and that's important. That's a new feature in Azure, and it's an interesting thing to work with. So we go and say purchase. There you go. Azure is now creating the deployment for our instance. Okay, great. Once the Ubuntu instance is deployed, Azure opens up the console for us to take a look at the details. It has created a public IP address. Let's go and add one data disk on which the CloudPoint data would reside, so that when we come up with a new and greater version of CloudPoint, you don't lose what we have created and it can retain those. So let's create a managed disk which is attached to the original. So I'll say cp admin 8 disk 1, and I'll use the existing resource group so I can manage it together, and I need just 10 gigs. So create. Okay, I'll say save. And while it does that, we can go to our home and see that we have downloaded our Veritas CloudPoint trialware image. So now we can log in to our newly created instance. So to do that, you need to SSH and get the IP address. So if you go to the console and look at the overview of that system, you can then I don't need this. You can then copy this IP address. Okay, there you go. So copy this IP address and check that the machine is all good and ready. Okay, so I'll just quickly log out and then first push the downloaded trialware into the newly created machine. So I'll say secure copy our Veritas image into the newly created machine. Okay, it would take anywhere between a few seconds to a few minutes depending on internet connection. Apparently I have a good internet connection, so that was quick. We'll re-log in back to the machine. Okay, now we see that we have received the image on our machine. Let's go and unzip this. Okay, so there you go, it has been unzipped. Now let's take care of the data disk that we've added and mount it so that we can use it going forward. So to do this, you need to check your device is available. So here you go. This is our STC, the 10 gig disk that we added. We need to first partition it, and then we will be able to create a file system that matches Linux file system. So to do that, we'll do fdisk there you go. You need to do sudo fdisk and then you create a new partition, use all the defaults, and then we write it. So that takes care of writing the partition. We also want to change the partition type to the Linux partition type. To do that, we'll say sudo mkfs stxt4 /dev/stc. Okay, so that's good. Now we create a mount point to mount that disk. So I'll say sudo mkdir/CloudPoint, and then we say sudo mount/dev/stc onto CloudPoint. So now if you go to CloudPoint, you see a new disk. Now we will need to install Docker. So to install Docker, I'm using the regular Docker documentation. I'm using the community edition of Docker. If you have an enterprise edition, you might have slightly different steps in which you could go to, get Docker enterprise edition. I'm using community edition here. So I've copied some of the steps. You could read the document, but I've copied some of the steps to make it easier for me to quickly run through this. So here are the steps. I'm just going to copy and paste. You can follow through. These are the same steps that are available in the document on Docker website. I'm not adding anything extra to this. It just makes my life easier to search for. Okay. And then I'm going to now add the repository for Docker Community Edition. Okay, repository added. Make sure that Ubuntu knows that there's a new repository. Okay, and now let's install Docker. Okay, yes, we need to install Docker. Okay, sweet. The installation is complete. Let's verify that we have Docker available for us. So the typical Hello World application in Docker is like this. It does what it does and tells us, yes, this is great. Awesome. So now we already have unzipped. If you look at it, we have already unzipped our Docker container image. We are going to load that. Now instructions for loading that is available on our CloudPoint help site that's available in Veritas. If you go to the CloudPoint administrators guide, deploying CloudPoint and deploying CloudPoint as a Docker image, then we have the instructions on how you would do that. If you haven't downloaded the trialware yet, I would highly recommend you go to a Veritas CloudPoint website, and when you click try it for free, we request some of the details from you. Once you submit your details, you will find the trialware available for download. So to go back to this documentation for deployment, I'm typing in this command. So there you go. Oh, I'm an Ubuntu machine. Okay. Okay, now that it has been loaded, I'm going to run this command over here, which will allow us to run it. We know it's a regular Docker run command. So Docker run -- name CloudPoint -it -t -v. This is our mount point, the CloudPoint mount point on the additional disk to store data. Open the SSL port and open the additional CloudPoint port. Okay, let's look at it. So it's been just launched. It's a few seconds only. I highly recommend that you give it about 5 minutes before you try to access the application. So while Docker works, so that way Docker is, launching the application, and the application gets ready for use and everything. While that is happening in the background, what we'll do is we will make sure that we have opened the ports for access. So you go back to your Azure console. On the console, you look at your virtual machine that we launched. Go to network interfaces. Use the network interface and modify the security rules for inbound traffic. So here's my security group, and there are my inbound security rules. I add a couple of rules for those same ports that we saw earlier. So we'll say HTTPS. Okay. Oh, let's modify it on the network interfaces. So here you go. Oh, we're back to the same thing. My bad. So yeah, non-security rules. We also add another one for 5671, and then change the priority and give it a name, CloudPoint, so that we can identify it later. Okay, there you go. So all of this is ready. We can close this. Here's just to make sure that we have all the right network interfaces going for us. Network interfaces. Network security group. Inbound security rules. So right, we have 443, the usual SSH, and the CloudPoint special port 5671. Essentially, for those who are technical, that's for RabbitMQ. So the deployment has been up for about 6 minutes. It's a good time. We will now go and look at our deployment. Remember to get our IP address. Okay, there you go. So the IP address is this, and we are on an SSL port. The first time you launch it, you have not yet installed all the SSL certificates, so it would throw an error, but nothing to worry about. Just say proceed, and your default password is CloudPoint, all small letters, no capitals, no numbers. Takes a couple of minutes to configure. Okay. Once your deployment comes back and configuration is complete, you can go and log in onto the CloudPoint console using admin, and the default password is CloudPoint. And there you go. This is a machine that's running on Azure, and you have CloudPoint. Thank you.